Hello, boys and girls. I'm so glad you've come to join Little Markie and I in our unforgettable journey to Sugartown. Nestled in a small village is a large, old, cozy house called an orphanage, filled with all kinds of boys and girls. We call it an orphanage because this is where children come to live who don't have a daddy or mommy. Little Markie, why don't you come and say hi to everyone and let's begin our story.
Hi, gang. Well, let's see. I've lived here in this orphanage for almost 8 years. I say almost 8 years because tomorrow is my 8th birthday. They call me Lil Markie. I got that name from the lady who takes care of the orphanage. When I was brought here, I was just a small baby. My parents had named me Mark, and that is why everyone called me until I was able to talk. And then something funny happened. Instead of a normal voice a little boy would have, I had an unusual voice that sounded very wee and small. Soon everyone began calling me Lil Markie, and that name sort of stuck with me. I am a short, pudgy sort of fella and not very athletic. I've always been afraid to try many sports because I might look funny or fall, and then the other children might laugh at me, and I just couldn't take that. Some of the other children make fun of me now because I'm a little bit larger than most of them. Sometimes I feel out of place when I'm with children outside of the orphanage because I only have one set of clothes. I have an old t-shirt, a pair of faded blue jeans with patches on the knees and back pocket, and a pair of red sneakers that are so worn that they can barely cover my wide little feet. On the very top of my head, I usually wear a ball cap that one of my friends gave me. I took a black felt pen and scribbled my name on the front. I never knew anything about my parents, except that they died in a car accident. When the other boys at school talk about their parents, I make up memories and pretend that they are true. I don't feel liked very much by others except when I'm at church. I know I am loved by God's people. My pastor is my favorite friend. On Sunday, I go to church and Sunday school. The others at the orphanage make fun of me for that, too. But it doesn't matter because I love God and love listening to stories of how Jesus, God's Son, came and lived on earth. My pastor tells stories of Jesus healing sick people and making the blind to see and the deaf to hear, and how Jesus went from place to place telling everyone about his Father and his love. I know that when I grow up, I want to be like Jesus. And since I don't have a daddy, I ask God to be my father. One very special Sunday morning, I was sitting in my usual spot in the front row, and my pastor began to tell the story of how Jesus died on the cross to save us from our sins. I knew that I had sins, like the time when I lied about sneaking cookies from the kitchen, or when I spoke unkindly to the children. The pastor said that the only way anyone could go to heaven was to ask Jesus to come into their heart and forgive them of their sins. So when he said to come to the front of the church and he would show you how to invite Jesus into your heart, I was the first one there. We knelt down right at the front pew and prayed together. I asked Jesus to forgive me of my sins and to come into my heart. Now, I was ready to go to heaven when I died. The pastor gave me a small Bible, and I take it everywhere I go, so if I have a few extra minutes, I can read and study it. And this way, I have memorized many Bible verses. But the biggest change is in the way that I treat my friends and obey when I'm told to do something, because I now have a tender heart. I have always dreamed about being a missionary, so I could tell children everywhere about God and his love for them. I really like music, and now it is very special for me to be able to go to the church and play the piano and sing songs I have learned about Jesus. I hope that someday I can have my very own piano. Well, with thoughts of my birthday on my mind, I went to my room to get ready for bed. I always read my Bible and pray before I go to sleep, and tonight was no different. So I got on my knees and began to talk to God. Dear Jesus, thank you for this beautiful day. The sun was so warm and the sky was real pretty. I sure do love you with all my heart. Please help me to be obedient and kind. Oh, and you know how much I would like to be a missionary. I want everyone in the whole wide world to know that you love them and died for them. Now about tomorrow. You know it's my birthday and there are just 3 things I would like to have. First is my very own piano, full of sweet, wonderful music made in bright, cheerful colors. Second, I would love to go to the circus tomorrow and go on the balloon ride. I love the beautiful colors of the balloons. You were so thoughtful to make our rainbow of colors. The very last, but most important thing I would like to have is happiness. I'm just not happy here. I appreciate this home you gave me, Lord, but I know you must have something special for me to do. Maybe a faraway land needs a missionary like me. I would tell them of your love every day. But Jesus, I know you can make me happy right here where I am. And if this is what you want for me, then that is what I want too. Do whatever you want to do with me, because I love you so much. Good night.
Early the next morning, Markie jumped to his feet and hurried to put his clothes on. Just before he left his room, he once again knelt beside his bed. He always takes time to pray to God and tell him that he loves him and to please make him a missionary.
This morning for breakfast, I ate a piece of toast soaked in milk that I warmed on the old wood stove in the corner of the big kitchen. I was disappointed to see that no one seemed to know that it was my birthday. I had even taken great care to write several notes and place them in places that were sure to be seen by everybody. And yet, no one said, "Happy birthday, Lil Markie," or "Here's a present for you, Markie." This was enough to break my little unhappy heart. I asked about going to the circus, but was sharply told that if we had money for anything, it would be for new clothes and not to go to the circus where we would be wasting time and money. Very sad and broken-hearted, I slowly walked outside and sat on the front porch. I pulled out my Bible because it always comforts me and began reading some of my favorite verses. Looking up to the sky, I wished I could fly just like a kite as high as heaven and be with God. I really like to fly my kite, and it always makes me feel closer to God, like I could reach out and touch him. These people here didn't love me, and I sure don't want to get any older or have any more birthdays if they were going to be this sad. It was then that I noticed a bright bundle of rainbow balloons just over the hill above the treetops. I ran towards them to see if I could get a closer look. Just as I climbed to the top of the ridge of the hill, I could see the circus! Everyone was rushing around getting things ready for the afternoon's opening. I walked closer until I came and stood right next to the man who was filling the balloons with helium. The kind-faced man noticed my obvious interest in the bright balloons and large weaved basket. "Would you like the first ride?" the man asked. I looked down and began pushing sand with my toes that were peeking out of the holes at the end of my shoes. I finally mumbled, "No, yes, but I live in an orphanage and we don't have money for the circus." The man, a little surprised at such a sad story, felt sorry for me and said with a whisper sort of voice, "Well, let me see. why don't you just climb in and tell me if you think I need any more balloons? Tell me how it feels. But it will be just our little secret, okay? I was so excited I jumped right in. Oh, it's just like I imagined it would be. Does it feel much different in the air? I asked. But before the man could answer, someone from the pony ride called for him. Here, you be real still and wait. I'll be back in a jiffy. I looked around and wished I could come when they opened the circus. It looked like such fun. I waited and waited for the balloon man to return, but I got tired of standing still, so I sat down in the basket and decided to read my Bible until the man came back. Thoughts of the morning ran through my mind, and I softly began to sing until, before long, I fell asleep. When the balloon man finally came back, he almost got to the balloon basket and didn't see me. So I guess he figured I must have gotten tired of waiting and went on home. All of a sudden, he remembered something he needed to do and quickly turned to go back. Not watching where he was stepping, he tripped over the rope that held the balloon ride to the ground. He tried to grab it, but it was too late. Sadly, he watched as the beautiful basket of balloons floated gracefully up into the clear blue sky, with me in it.
To hear the rest of Little Markie's story, turn this tape over to side 2.
The balloon man didn't know that I was being lifted higher and higher on a journey that was to be the beginning of a brand new, exciting, and happy life. God was in control, and he was watching over me. He caused a real strong wind to blow like it never had before, so it would push the balloon basket clear up into the sky beyond the clouds and out of the land. The balloon basket floated higher and higher. Soon I woke up. I'd stretched, and looking up, I could see the clouds were moving fast. I blinked my eyes a couple of times, and looking again, it seemed like I was moving. I stood up real quick, and to my surprise, I was floating high above the land. People looked like tiny ants on the ground. I wondered how I got up here, but it really didn't matter because I was free, like a cloud floating into space. For a long time, I watched as the balloons carried me all across the country. The question came to my mind several times about how I would get down and would I ever stop floating? I spent much of my time reading my Bible and praying. I was sure glad I had kept my Bible with me. I love God's Word, and I knew God would take care of me. I had never seen such a strong wind. Many times, I would curl up in the corner of the basket to try and get warm. It just seemed like God's hands were guiding the basket. Sometimes I got scared, but then I would remember verses I would memorize and how it is important to trust God and believe that He would keep His promises. Jesus said He would never leave me, and it was with these thoughts that I drifted farther and farther away from the small town, the circus, even the orphanage, and the other children, not knowing the special mission God had prepared just for me. By this time, I was getting pretty hungry. As much as I didn't like the food at the orphanage, I was so hungry that I would have gladly eaten it, and not complained either. I really like to eat, and that's part of the reason why I am round and pudgy. I started to think of my favorite kinds of foods as I leaned over the side of the balloon basket. Then, I thought I must be dreaming because the clouds were no longer white but fluffy pink, like cotton candy. There was an ocean below that looked like a huge bowl of punch, and on the land there were tiny people and little houses that looked like gumdrops. The wind slowly began to stop blowing, and the balloon basket began floating down. I could see high above the town a very tall pole with a bright shining star on the top. The balloon basket gently floated down, closer and closer as I came to this delicious-looking, dreamy place. The town was so sparkly that when the sun would shine on it, it would cast rainbows all around. Very gently, the basket came to a stop. I was so surprised by all the little children coming to greet me that I didn't even notice the great clusters of balloons which were coming down from all over the sky and landing in the children's hands, on trees, and just everywhere. It was like they had followed the balloon basket. I carefully climbed out so as not to tip the basket and fall. A little boy walked up and said, "Hello, my name is Sydney." I began to speak, but before I could even say my name, the children giggled at my little voice. Everyone tried to talk at once, and I noticed they all spoke the same language, but they seemed to be from many different lands. Soon the children all were quiet, and I began again. "My name is Lil Markie." There were still a few giggles, but this time they could hear me. "Where am I?" Sydney, startled by the question, replied, "Why, don't you know? You're in Sugartown." "Well, how far is that from the orphanage?" I asked. "What's an orphanage?" I looked down and saw two little girls that were as cute as could be. "Not orphanage, you little cuties. Orphanage. That's a place where little boys and girls live who don't have a daddy and mommy." "And what are your names?" "My name is Sugar Baby, and this is Sugar Plum. We are the babies of Sugartown," they replied. Just then another boy spoke up. "Hi, my name is Bradley. I'm Sydney's brother. That orphanage place sounds a lot like Sugartown." "The orphanage never looked this good," I said, looking around. A little girl who was standing close to me looked up thoughtfully and said, "My, you sure are brave and courageous too. How did you get here? Did you come from the stars?" Sydney quickly stepped in to save me from any more questions and explained about the sad story of their new friend the star. How she had fallen out of the sky only a few days ago, and they thought maybe I had come from the stars too. "Oh no, I'm not quite sure how I got here, except I know that God brought me here." "And what is your name?" I asked, turning back to the little girl. "My name is Carrie. Would you like something to eat? You must be starved." "Yes, and very thirsty too." "We'll fix you up at the Soda Fountain restaurant. That's where I work, and we have the best food in town." While walking towards the restaurant, I couldn't help but notice all the cute little stores and shops and houses. What a fun place to live, I thought.
Inside the restaurant, Carrie handed Markie a glass and showed him the soda fountain. It was beautiful. A rainbow of sparkling flavors that flowed from a rainbow fountain that you could drink from. While he enjoyed the delicious meal, the children asked about God, who he was, and where he was since he wasn't in the basket. Markie told them God is everywhere and he has a son. His name is Jesus.
I explained about the life of Jesus and how much he loves us all. I told them about God's love and how Jesus died so we could live with him in heaven. The children sat in wonder and listened to every word. Then I told them about how I had asked Jesus into my heart to save me from my sins, and now I wanted to be a missionary so I could tell children about Jesus and his love for them. I also told them about the orphanage and the boys and girls there and how sad I was about my birthday. Then I explained how God took me on this journey in the balloon basket and brought me to Sugartown. The only problem is, I don't know how to get back. Everyone must be worried about me, and I must get the balloon basket back to the kind balloon man. Oh, you can't leave now, said Carrie. What would I do here? I asked. Well, said Carrie thoughtfully, you could tell us more stories about Jesus. The children cheered. Yes, yes, please stay. Sydney looked at me and reminded me of all I had just said about wanting to be a missionary. You can be our missionary and teach us about Jesus, he said. Would you really like that? I asked. The children clapped for joy. Well, I can tell you about Jesus and how he can make us happy and how he loves us and wants each of us to live for him. We could learn how to love one another and to live a right life. Then is it settled? You'll stay? Asked Carrie. Yes, yes, I will stay.
That night, a very happy and excited little Markie went to sleep, warm and snug in the best suite in the Fudge House Hotel. Candy, who owned the Fudge House, saw to that. The children were glad that little Markie was brought to them. They couldn't wait to hear more stories about Jesus. They were downstairs in the lobby of the Fudge House making plans to build Markie's new home. This was only the beginning for little Markie and the children of Sugartown, and they all knew that. Markie had thanked God before falling asleep for answering his prayer. He did get to ride in the balloon basket. Not only the first ride, but the basket now belonged to him. And he was truly happy, for he was now a missionary. Markie didn't have his piano yet, but he knew that God would give him that too. It was just a matter of time. For God's word says, if you will ask anything in my name, you will have it. And little Markie knew now that God keeps his promises.
I'm wrapped in his arms forever. There's hope in each new day. I won't be afraid or lonely, 'cause Jesus came my way. I used to wonder, does God care? But at last I understand. I'm wrapped in his arms forever, content just where